Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Psychology of Dating podcast. My name is Nadine Newkirk. I'm both a clinical psychologist and dating coach. And for today's episode, we're going to explore what are some signs that you're focusing too much on the other person in dating or in a relationship, and why might this be problematic, and what are some helpful tips so you can kind of shift the balance and get a bit more equality. Before we jump into that, I'm really excited to share that I've got my next group dating coaching program running in February 2026. These programs are kept small and boutique so that there's enough opportunity for people to share experiences, ask questions, get live coaching. It involves 3 months of weekly groups where there will be practical skills, slideshows. I love my pictures on my slideshows. Then there'll also be opportunity for coaching in the second half. And there's 3 individual sessions because I find it really important to have a session before group starts to explore your experience of dating relationships, figure out your unique obstacles and goals. And then also have a check-in along the way and also one to kind of recap after the group and think about where to next. I'm also really excited to share that since the last group, I've incorporated a 61-page workbook, and each page of the workbook, each chapter coincides with the weekly group programs. So you have all the content and kind of education you need in there, plus some practical exercises. Already got some great feedback from the last group that this workbook has been a handy tool to use afterwards. So it's something that you can carry on with you after that 3 months. If you are interested, I recommend jumping in because the groups are small and registering via my website, nadineNewkirk.com. The link will be in the episode show notes. Okay, so what are some signs that you're too focused on the other person? And why might this be a problem? Let's start with how it can be problematic. Number one, you can neglect your own needs, which it comes from a really kind place sometimes. Sometimes it can come from fear or anxiety that you're wanting to please the other person. You're wanting to make sure that they're comfortable as you're dating with the progress and the pace, wanting to make sure that they're happy or content. So, that can come from great intentions. However, when you're dating, you're always two people, and inevitably, you can't have the exact same needs all the time. That's just impossible as humans. And if you're so focused on someone else, you're going to neglect your own needs. And that's going to be a real problem over time. What type of needs might you neglect? You might neglect your emotional needs because you're not speaking up about something that bothers you, or even things that you really want or could really make you joyful or happy. You might neglect kind of practical needs or self-care because you're so focused on the other person that maybe you're cancelling plans and you're not doing your usual hobbies, or you're not strengthening other friendships because you're prioritizing time with this person. It can also lead to resentment over time, where it comes from a kind place and wanting to strengthen the relationship by making the other person happy. But actually, over time, you might find yourself that you get resentful because your needs aren't being met, and that's detrimental to the relationship. The second main issue that can come up if you're over-focusing on the other person is that it can actually stunt a relationship, and it can even kind of end a healthy relationship. How might this happen? If you think about a healthy relationship, you want yourself and the other person to both put roughly equal 50% of effort. If this isn't happening, if you're, say, putting in 80% and, they're putting in not as much, like in a long-term relationship, it'll ebb and flow, but overall you want there to be that balance. And if you're kind of not setting this standard early on in dating, that your needs matter too, then you might be setting up the stage for long run. Maybe that you're going to be kind of self-sacrificing in the relationship, or things are kind of going to revolve around the other person, you're going to get a bit missed. It can also mean that a relationship won't progress. Maybe the other person is like finds it a bit hard to commit. Or maybe it's just comfortable for them and what they really want. So they kind of don't have as much need to move in together. Or maybe you really want kids and you have a biological clock because you're a woman and, maybe the other person doesn't have as much need and they're okay for a relationship to take 10 years to get to committed, but you're actually wanting to speed it up. And if you're over focusing on the other person, what they want, you're not going to have the relationship grow and progress in the way you need it to. It can also stunt healthy relationships or end them if you don't have conflict. This might sound strange, but conflict is normal in a healthy relationship. Obviously the type and degree of conflict. But when you have two different people, different opinions, different emotions, different needs, it's normal for obstacles to come up. And when you can have some conflict, sometimes it actually gives you an opportunity to really see the other person's point of view, to navigate how to get through that tension together, and you can be stronger afterwards. And if you're so focused on the other person, you're not wanting to rock the boat, you're going to miss those opportunities. Okay, so what are the signs that you might be over-focusing on someone else? Sign number one is you find it really difficult to make decisions. You're like overthinking small or big things. So something smaller could be just knowing what to do for a date, what restaurant to go to, or, how long should it be, or when to end the date. And this might be because you're trying to do the impossible task of mind read what the other person wants and then try and base the date or when it ends around that. It's much easier to make a decision if you focus on what do I want and trust that the other person can set their own boundaries or, express their own opinion if they want to. So a tip here, this is what I used to do or still do sometimes, is think about, imagine I was alone, the other person kind of just wasn't in the picture, what would I want to do? And usually the answer is there pretty quickly. Sign number two that you're too focused on someone else's needs. You have a lot of anxiety. And again, this can come up because your brain's trying to do an impossible task. If you are feeling kind of anxious, rumination, worry thoughts, maybe that physical kind of tension from anxiety, like tight muscles, tightness in chest, funny stomach, things like that, it might be that you're trying to control something that you can't control. And that is another person. So when we're in dating, of course, understandably, we often really want the other person to like us, or we want them to be in the same type of relationship that we want. And you're spending so much time focused on the other person to try and make a really good glue to make sure you stay together, but it's making you really anxious. And that's because you're trying to control another person, their behaviors, their feelings, their thoughts, and that's not possible. They're their own person. So a tip here is to remind yourself of what is within my control. And if you haven't listened to it, I recommend my episode on mindfulness skills, because mindfulness in DBT therapy reminds us we cannot read someone else's thoughts, feelings, intentions, images in their head. That is impossible. Whenever our brain says, oh, this person's going to hate me because of this, or they're going to think that, that's just something our brain has made up. It's not a fact. It's not what we know the other person is thinking. We can only read our own thoughts, feelings, intentions, etc. Next tip, or next sign that you're over focusing on someone else, is there's no conflict in a relationship. And that might sound strange. You might be like, well, that's a perfect relationship. But healthy relationships have some form of tension at times. It's just the way that it's brought out, the way you communicate with each other is where it becomes unhealthy. So if you're in a healthy relationship, it's normal to have these challenges. And as I said, if you can get through these obstacles, it can actually make the relationship stronger. So what could you do here? You could practice small things, just saying your opinion, maybe practicing at the checkout, if you find it really hard, then you need to kind of do a little bit of graded exposure, what we say in psychology, where you start with something small and then you build your way up to kind of bigger things that feel very anxiety provoking for you. Another sign that you're over focusing on the other person is you cancel your own plans for them. And it can be normal, of course, in a relationship when you've got two people you're trying to figure out how to fit into each other's lives. And you might, sacrifice some things. But if you're over focused on the other person, it's where you kind of forgot all the other baskets, like your hobbies, your friends, work, and you're over focusing on that person. And when you're new to dating, it's like a drug. It feels so good. And it's tempting to see them so many times. And what we want to do, though, is make sure that we still have balance in our life, that you're still making time to see a friend and, not cancel that plan. You can organize the date another time. Next one, you're over apologizing or not appropriately apologizing. Do you find yourself just saying sorry automatically? Like, sorry, can I get a glass of water when you're at someone's house? Or, I'm sorry, I just need to go to the bathroom. Sorry, I was a few minutes late. Oh, I'm so sorry, like to say this, but like, I don't really like it when blah, blah, blah. You're apologizing for normal human needs of like being hungry or thirsty or something that's quite minimal or trivial, like being late a few minutes. If you're doing this, it erodes your sense of self-respect because you're saying the other person's kind of needs are more important than mine and kind of above my just normal human instincts and needs, like needing some water. So a tip that you can do is say thank you instead. Thank you so much for waiting. Thank you for, showing me where the glasses are. And that shows appreciation without putting yourself one below. If you want more tips around maintaining self-respect, you can go to my podcast episode on FAST skills, which is DBT therapy. It's an acronym, and it's 4 different skills on maintaining self-respect. My last kind of pointer here is there might be a sign that you're over-focusing on the other person if you're noticing ongoing resentment, rumination. Your brain will be looping over and over kind of all the negative things that have happened, the other person said, or, where the relationship is, because your brain is trying to solve a problem that isn't being solved. So if you're over-focusing on the other person, you're neglecting your needs, you might start to feel resentful, which is a healthy emotion to signal, hey, I need to do something a little bit different here. And a tip here is to pause, maybe do some journaling and just reflect. What do I want or need changed in this relationship? If I kind of just don't think about the obstacles for now, don't think about how I'm going to get there, because that's usually blocks the brain. Just think about what do I need? And then you might need a little bit of help with a friend or a therapist or someone to say, how can I ask for this or get a change for this? Okay, everyone. It was lovely as always to speak with you all. And I hope you have a great night or morning wherever you are.